All right, so believe it or not, they kept talking for 30 minutes after that presser was over, and he went on to kind of cut right more to the chase of, look, we'll take an examination of the way that we do free agency. So, Corey, you decided to do some of the legwork, jump ahead, and do an examination for the Cowboys. What can you tell us? What have you learned?
All right, let me ask a question first.
Okay.
What is, and I want everybody out there to think about this, what is your problem with the way the Cowboys approach free agency? My problem has always been that they've always tried to find a gem out of the designer bin at the Goodwill.
Okay.
You know, they're like, hey, we're going to go in here and we're going to every once in a while, they'll get a guy who's past his prime and might give you 3 good games. And it just seems like the talent level is low. Now, I didn't go into this looking for information to prove that the talent's low. I went into it thinking that already, and then let the information tell me this story. So I have about 2.5 pages of information to dive into.
Okay, and I just want to start by saying I think I'm probably the same spot as you are. I think they inflate their own draft statistics by signing their own players to sometimes not really market representative contracts, and then they make this continued argument that they don't need free agency because of that, when I'm like, that's a flawed argument from the jump.
What's my biggest issue with the Cowboys in free agency?
Yes.
Yeah, they're two people that are most in charge, Jerry and Steven, are partying and not watching who is a free agent, what do they do. So the two decision makers have no clue who is a free agent and what they actually do or don't do.
Yeah,
so
they're reliant on somebody else.
What other team has that set up in all of professional sports?
Yeah. So I went back to 2019. I could have gone back further with this, but I decided 5-year window. Is that 5 years, Kevin? Yeah, sure. That sounds good.
6?
Yeah, okay. Sounds good to me. Since 2019, the Cowboys have signed 37 returning free agents.
Okay.
And 27 new free agents. I think one of those numbers might be off by like 1.
Okay.
13 of those were duplicate. Like Dak signed his franchise tag, and then the next year signed his contract.
Okay.
So those 13 of those were duplicates. So essentially like 51 different players, specific different players. 2020 was the best. They signed 17 total, new, and in 2019 and 2024, both tied for the lowest. By the way, 2020, really good season. 2019, 2024, they only signed 7 each in those off seasons.
Okay.
Those are the bookend seasons for Mike McCarthy, right? That both turned out to be poor seasons for them. 2020 and 2021, they added the most new free agents, 6 and 9 respectively.
Oh.
So they added 15 there. The other 3 years, they added 12 total.
Yikes. So low.
The total number of players who had at least one Pro Bowl, these are new players to the team that had at least one Pro Bowl before they were signed. 9 out of the 27.
So maybe 1 out of 3?
Yeah.
Which doesn't sound great.
The total number of players who had at least one All-Pro out of that 27, 6.
Okay.
The total number of new players with Pro Bowl in the season that they signed, 1. Brian Anger. The total number of players with an All-Pro the season they signed,
1.
Brian Anger.
So again, not to dismiss special teams, that's obviously a huge part of the game. But if that's where you excel, kind of, not only, but mostly, that's probably not a winning formula.
Of the players that they signed that have had multiple All-Pros, Gerald McCoy had 6. He never saw the field for the Cowboys. Don Terry Poe had 2, and I believe he played like 3 games for the Cowboys.
Okay.
Jake McQuaid had 2 All-Pros, or Pro Bowls, and Brian Anger. Those were the 4 players that had at least one Pro Bowl or more than one Pro Bowl. And only Gerald McCoy and Brian Anger had multiple All-Pros. So what you're seeing there is you're signing guys who aren't often very good.
Yeah.
You're signing guys who you're hoping that you got a diamond out of this, that somebody else didn't see it. Of the old re-signings for the Cowboys, 7 were returning of the returners were Pro Bowlers, and 3 had all pros. Amari Cooper, Dak Prescott, Sean Lee, LP, DeMarcus Lawrence, LVE, and again Brian Anger, because he was the only players to have earned a Pro Bowl in the year that they signed, and this is from the returning players, Brian Anger and LP Ladisor.
So again, special teams
The
exclusive.
year that you signed them, Dak Prescott was not an
Right.
All-Pro or a Pro Bowler.
Right.
The year that you signed him, Amari Cooper, not All-Pro, or Sean Lee, that's saying all the way down the list. And then to the last part. Here's where, Kevin, the money part comes in.
Is this the part that's going to drive people crazy?
I did some numbers here. The games started total like 2,369 games, 1,032. Yeah, games started at 132. On average, for new players that they sign to their team, you get 6 starts. On average, you get 6 starts out of players that they have signed from other teams, which means
Yikes.
most of them don't even make it into the season, like George Iocca.
Yeah.
Most of them don't even, like Ronald Jones. Some of these, Royce Freeman, they don't even make it to the field. Therefore, you got them, and they never even made it. So you didn't even get average 6 starts. The older players average 23 starts. So they're getting theirs worth. Now, here's, Kevin, where I think that you might have the biggest problem. What do you think, on average, new players are paid in their yearly contracts? On average.
I know it's low, but I'm still going to say like $3.5 million.
Keep going down.
$2.5 million?
Keep going down.
You're kidding me.
You can go down a quarter more.
Is it like working at Chick-fil-A? $15 an hour?
$2.25 million is on average what the Cowboys pay.
No, that is not the same.
And I will add,
People are running to Chick-fil-A for
Hell yeah. See ya, Spittle. I'm going to get $2.25 million at Chick-fil-A.
I will add, I believe Randall Cobb made 5, and then Gerald McCoy had 6 on $6 million on his slate. So that took the number up. Most of them look like ones.
Wow.
So the Cowboys, again, they're spending about $2.25 million on free agents. So that's where I'm trying to figure out, is that the right budget? And I can't say in each year it looks like they're spending about 6. And then in that one year they spent almost 9. They spent almost $12 million in that for that 1 year. Obviously there are other years on the contract, but an average year.
Sure.
And so they're
that's so low.
The number's low. Now they'll tell you, hey, we pay out all because they're paying their other players first. Well, I get that.
And plus, I also argue against that because you've seen the 5-year thing where they're actually one of the lowest cash flow teams because they have so much dead money.
Yeah. So what I found out was the Cowboys just looking at the names. Here's some names that I'm going to throw out there. Tavon Austin.
Okay.
Jamiz Oluwole. Cam Fleming. Christian Covington, Kerry Hyder, George Iocca, HaHa Clinton Dix, Maurice Canaday, Blake Bell, Greg Zuerlein, Terrell Basham, Carlos Watkins, Tynes. None of these guys worked out. And I know that you're supposed to take a risk every once in a while. You're supposed to try and, you want to find a balance there, and you don't want to spend and lose a lot. But go get some Pro Bowlers. Go get some All-Pros to add to your team. Go get some real talent, not just people that are going to fill in for $1 million because you have to fill out the roster spot. So for me, Kevin, if Steven's going to take a long, hard look at it, I need you, my capist, or capitalist, if you will. I need you to help me figure out why my structure is so top-heavy that I can't get Pro Bowlers or All-Pros whenever they go into free agency.
So here's a great example. Man, those numbers, though, are... You said you did a study. I wish you would have put like a trigger warning ahead of this.
It did trigger you, huh?
So I would have known, like, $2.5 million. Ridiculous. All right. Here's one of the issues that you run into. All right, $2.5 million. We feel like it's preposterously low.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What do you think was the cap hit of Derrick Henry this year?
3?
$5 million.
$5 million.
Saquon, $3.8 million.
Mm-hmm.
And we all agree they both made monumental impacts. Saquon Barkley.
I'd say they're both worth $34 million because I'd say they're worth $2 million a game.
Yeah.
If I'm giving the value of what they gave to your team, but the same with Micah Parsons. Every time he plays a game, he's worth $2 to $3 million a game.
Now, I'm glad that you said that. We're going to get to Micah Parsons in just 1 second. Saquon Barkley might be the reason that you win the Super Bowl. In fact, I would dare say if they win the Super Bowl next week, it's probably because of Saquon Barkley.
Yep.
And I know what people are going to say. Well, you have to pay the cost down the road. Okay, well, let's take a look. The insurmountable cap hit for Derrick Henry next year is $13 million. Oh, my goodness. Oh, how could you ever survive such a cap hit? Well, what if you just cut him? Well, guess what? If you just went ahead and cut him, you know what his cap hit would be? $4 million. $4 million would be your hit, which essentially means you signed Derrick Henry for 1 year and $9 million. Works for me. Now let's go to Saquon Barkley. And this is the one that annoys people when people are like, how do the Eagles keep signing people? This is exactly how they do it. All right, the cap hit for Saquon Barkley this year, $3.8 million. All right, so pretty low. Next year, they're going to be in trouble, though. $6.5 million.
Wow, they have like $10 million total.
Yes, for 2 years. Next year, they are screwed. $9.8 million.
Should be like 40, I think, right?
So I don't think it's insane. This might not happen. I don't think it's insane to think that Rico Dowdle could potentially get a 3-year, $20 million contract.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the Eagles gave Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
But then, when's it going to hit? It's going to hit them in 2027 because the dead money they have then, I will absolutely concede, is $19 million. And that's going to be problematic. Except, of course, by the time you get there, they will have layered other contracts to have low hits in 25 and 26 and 27 so you can reallocate that money. And you might be like, that's great for other teams. What does that mean for the Cowboys? All right, now let's hit the Cowboys. And the comp that I use for Micah Parsons is Chris Jones.
Okay.
We all agree Chris Jones is a phenomenal defensive player who made a lot of money.
He is fantastic.
He got a
As a matter of fact, we'll talk about him in the C block.
Okay, great. He got a 5-year, $158.75 million contract. So almost, not quite, but almost $32 million a year. I think it's safe to assume that Micah will get more than that. But Micah was also quick to say, life sounds a lot better getting paid $35 million than getting paid $40 million and getting double teamed every single time. All right. So let's take a look.
Which his agent had to have hated that.
Exactly.
He's like, I got the Joneses here. What are you doing?
Don't worry, they'll collapse.
And Micah Parsons is even more of an advantageous situation because his cap hit next year, and he's still on his rookie deal. And you're going to hit the club option next year. It's $24 million. Now, this is why if the Cowboys were sure they were going to bring Micah back, and Micah wanted to talk, his agency might not have wanted to talk. They're like, we're going to wait another year. I don't know that. I wish they would have done it a year sooner because then you could have added money to his cap hit this year, which was $5.4 million. Mm-hmm. And because the reason why I bring this up, you know what Chris Jones' cap hit is this year? $7.3 million. Because you can load that contract and spread the money out however you like. Do you know the cap hits from there for Chris? 34.8, 41, 34.3, and 41. I will agree. Those are all steep cap hits. Do you know what the dead money is at the end of that? Nothing. So when they think that he'll be done, he'll be out. If they think he's going to be done in 2026, guess what? There's a lot of guaranteed money in the first 3 years of the deal. They want to bail after 2026. Dead cap hit, $12 million. You want to post June 1st that? $6 million a piece. So when people get caught up saying Micah's going to cost $40 million, for Chris Jones, for the next 3 years, he costs $84 million. Now you're only talking about a $28 million a year hit. I just saved you $12 million a year with limited damage on the backside of the salary cap.
I really appreciate that, Kevin. Thank you for saving me that $12 million. I'm going to roll that over next year because I got to sign one of my guys next year.
And
that's what we get.
Yeah.
Is you have this
You're
money
right.
for this year that you can spend on a couple free agents that might actually help this team, that might be starters for your team. So you're not rolling out backup defensive ends. You're not rolling out backup linebackers. You can actually roll out there somebody who's started in the league and understands how to play in this league and is ready to go from game one. I understand, though, they do like to draft and develop. That is their philosophy. But Stephen Jones said we're going to take a long, hard look at the way we do free agency.
And here's one of the things they can't get out of, because I see people are asking, what's Dak's cap hit? We've been through this a couple of times. But just remember, when you talk about Dak Prescott getting $60 million a year, there is no year of his contract coming up in which he will make as little as $60 million. I might have blown some people's minds right there. And yes, I did say as little as. Here are his cap hits. $89.9 million, $67.8 million, $61.7 million, and $71.7 million. And that takes him all the way through the time that he'll be about to be 36. Do you want to restructure that deal coming up next year? They're going to. So they're going to drop his cap hit by, I don't know, probably like $30 million, give or take. Where's that $30 million going to go? It's going to go to 26 and 27 and 28 and maybe beyond, when he's definitely not going to be the starting quarterback of this team. How do I know that?
Sounds like Schotty's got a good chance to succeed here.
And that's what I hate about the way they do contracts. I know they're going to do this because that is literally what they just did.
And they're going to
with
use
Dak Prescott's
They're going to
contract.
use that money that they save on Dak to pay Micah?
No, I
but
mean,
not to go get other free agents?
Kind of, because right now they're essentially at zero with their salary cap. And here's the frustrating part when you talk about, well, let's use the money to go get our own people. You could use that $30 million to add to your salary cap. I just told you Micah Parsons' cap hit for next year is $24 million. I could drop it to 10 to 12 like that. So I just saved you another $10 to $12 million. That's $40 to $42 million that I have already saved you. And I realize you could be putting yourself in a crap situation in 26, 27, 28. But I'm going to give Schottenheimer the ammunition if you think you're close. And that whole press conference was about 30 minutes of people saying, we're right by the rim.
Right there.
All these other people told me how close they are. All right, put your money where your mouth is. Take that $40+ million and go get people to dunk the freaking ball.
Exactly. And Kevin,
I like how we always do football, and they're like, well, he's going to be on a pitch count this Sunday.
Yeah.
Like, why can't you just say a snap count?
I don't
we're
know.
around the rim. How about we're near the goal line? You're playing your own sport. Stop using other sports.
It's buzzwords.
By the way, just real quick, this is a great question. I'm sorry, Corey. For the 903, how is the cap hit different than they make? So keep in mind.
Oh, man.
So like, and we won't go too far into the weeds on this, but when you hear Dak Prescott got 4 years for $240 million, that's simple, $60 million a year. But realistically, he got $212 million like guaranteed. And you can spread that signing bonus out and that guaranteed money kind of how you see fit. Not exactly, but kind of. So you can manipulate the numbers however you want. And so Dak can flip a switch in his contract where he's like, hey, all this money, boom, that's now a signing bonus all of a sudden. And you're like, guess what? I can now spread that money out across the contract again.
So this part of it that's the beginning. The next phase, I would say, is now Steven and your group go over the last 5 years and see all the free agents that you didn't sign that you could have spent $6 million on instead of $2 million, and see how much better. Again, go check them out and see the ones that you were interested in that were maybe too expensive and how they did. Because they could have had a Von Miller injury. That's fine. But you need to do that research and you need to have that information so you can say, holy crap, we've been missing on a lot of talent.
That is a great point.
Or we're doing it right.
I don't want to make it sound like every free agent is Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry. That's not realistic. It just so happens that this year we're in happen to have two really great examples. But they
just happen to be running backs.
Yes.
It could have been linebackers or safeties or whatever.
And we have talked to Steven about this for people asking. We've talked to Jerry about this, and they have essentially told us we do not want to put our future years of the cap in that peril. So whenever you ask, why don't the people in charge do it like this? We asked. They said, we don't want to do it like that.